milestone in one of government's landmark reform initiatives, the review, restructuring, and repositioning of the 64-year-old entity called Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI. Most importantly, I want to thank His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, for his dedication, support, and for his approvals and the overwhelming show of confidence in undertaking this reform. A bit of history. Ministry of Finance Incorporated was set up in 1959 through an act of Parliament as a custodian of the federal government's investments in various government-owned enterprises and government-linked enterprises. At its creation, MOFI was envisaged to be a major player in the management of our fiscal policy with respect to managing and government investments. Unfortunately, this has not happened. This is evident in the fact that many of the earlier MOFI investments, such as NITEL, NEPA, Nigerian Airways, Nigerian Shipping Line, African Petroleum, and a few others, either failed or delivered suboptimal returns, while the value for many of those has also been eroded. So we made the case for change. It is also the firm belief of Mr. President that all government assets must be known and they must be used to generate cash flows that will contribute to improve government revenues and contribute to the social and economic development of our country. From experience, the outright sale of government assets should not necessarily be our first option. We must, as a government, do all we can to safeguard government investments and assets while finding innovative ways to derive maximum value from them. For our active investments, we must put in place the appropriate corporate governance structures, institutional framework, legislative instruments, policies, capital, and enabling environment, and other support to enable investments to deliver the most superior risk-adjusted returns. For idle assets with stranded value, we must find innovative ways to put them to work and unlock liquidity from them. This includes using partnerships, concessions, injections of capital, and several other ways. To achieve this, we must have visibility over these assets regardless of where they are or who is keeping them. As part of the reform process, the reform, restructure, and repositioning component of the Strategic Revenue Growth Initiative, the SRGI, a number of government institutions were selected for reform. And MOFI was one of the ones that we selected as one government institution that needed to be reformed, to be positioned to better serve its stakeholders and support the government's economic development. And the thesis for us for this reform is that government must maximize the return on its existing investments, and matured investments must match or outperform their peers in terms of risk-adjusted returns. Secondly, idle government assets must be turned into cash flow generating assets in order to unlock liquidity for the system and create investment opportunities for the private sector. MOFI also must partner with the government and private sector to leverage current investments and idle assets as mechanisms to support the government in delivering on its mandate. So accordingly, we got the approval of His Excellency, and a committee was set up under the leadership of the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, to reposition MOFI for better value. The committee produced and submitted a detailed report of its findings and recommendations, and one of the key recommendations was the need to restructure and reposition MOFI from its current status of being a passive custodian of federal government investments as a unit under the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation to become a world-class company responsible for making and managing government investments in accordance with global best practices and applicable also within the industry. The second major recommendation of the committee is to create a national assets register to enable the government to know what it truly owns, determine the value of these assets, and also develop strategies to derive maximum value from them. The report of the committee, consisting of its findings and a broad range of recommendations, were presented to His Excellency, Mr. President, in July 2021, and in August 2021, Mr. President approved the recommendations and directed immediate implementation of the recommendations. Mr. President's approval for MOFI restructuring included compilation and automation of comprehensive asset register, undertaking the valuation of different classes of assets considered to be strategic to the federal government, creating a robust pipeline of government-owned and government-linked investment opportunities by creating an investment hatchery and an investment deals room. Also developing and implementing guidelines, policies, and systems and government structures for auctioning and disposing of non-strategic government investments or legally forfeit those assets. And number 5, to develop and implement policies to deliberately create assets from all concessions-related transactions and derive and manage these assets by matching the assets to legacy concessions. Following the approval of His Excellency, Mr. President, a project management office was set up, and the work that we've done so far, Your Excellency, as mentioned earlier, is undertaken by a technical committee that included not just the ministry, but also the Budget Office of the Federation, the NSIA, the Office of the Accountant General, the BPE, the ICRC, PICA, as well as the Ministry of Justice. The subsequent approvals of the committee's report by Mr. President include that MOFI should be granted autonomy in terms of financial independence from the civil service, allowing it to operate in accordance with global best practice as a world-class asset and investment managed organization. 2, MOFI to generate revenues to sustain itself by charging management fees for the assets under its management. And 3, the establishment of a MOFI governing council chaired by His Excellency Mr. President, who may be represented by the Vice President, and including the Ministers of Finance, Budget, and National Planning as council members, and other members of the council include HMS Petroleum Resources, Ministers of Industry, Trade, and Investment, Transport, Aviation, Governor Central Bank of Nigeria, and 3 experts that have been earlier mentioned. The Board of Directors, chaired by Mr. Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, has also been earlier mentioned by the essay to the President on press matters. The executive management are also here today and presented to Your Excellency. We also have approval that this Governing Council should be inaugurated today, and this will be marking the official launch of MOFI. We also have, in addition to the launch, the inauguration, a MOFI 10-year strategic plan, a national asset register that has been completed, a MOFI brand identity report that has been completed, and also an approved inventory of the kickoff list of assets for the new MOFI. So the expectations we have from the new MOFI is in transforming this organization into an active investor that derives value for the portfolio. The Nigerian government stands to reap significant rewards, as estimate indicates that the financial value from the current MOFI portfolio will reach up to 1 trillion naira from the current assessment that we have made, which is 19 trillion naira. It is also crucial that MOFI sweats our investments and assets to derive the maximum value from these assets, to unlock liquidity for government, to also contribute significantly towards government revenue drive, and cut down on government spending investments that are not contributing to government revenues or even supporting the government's social economic agenda. In summary, Your Excellency, council members, ladies and gentlemen, we must prioritize government investments and derive the highest return on investment from our assets, such as companies where government owns controlling stakes, as well as shares in private companies, built-up properties on undeveloped lands, machinery, and intangible assets such as mining rights, spectrum licenses, names, copyrights, and many more. In conclusion, we aim to gradually close the gap between the different classes of assets to bring more value to the Nigerian citizens. The federal government remains committed to ensuring accountability and transparency, and I'm confident that at the end of this administration, Nigerians will experience the deserved change that we promise. I sincerely hope that the launch of MOFI today will mark the beginning of a new era. May I again seize this opportunity to congratulate the Council and the Board of Directors and Executive Management on their appointments and to urge that you discharge your responsibilities with the utmost diligence. Excellency, Council members, thank you very much for your kind attention. Good morning.
Honorable Ministers, members of the Governing Council and Board of Directors of Ministry of Finance Incorporated, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you all to the official launching of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. It is a significant day for Nigeria and a significant milestone given the importance of a restructured Ministry of Finance Incorporated to the revitalization of the national economy. A major part of our economic reform program is knowing what we own in terms of our investments and assets in order to maximize returns from them. In recognition of the need to build the institutional framework for managing our nation's investments and assets, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated was born through enactment of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Act of 1959, now Caption 229, Laws of the Federation, 2004. The Act established Ministry of Finance Incorporated as a corporation sole. This Act explicitly empowers Ministry of Finance Incorporated to enter into commercial transactions of any discretion on behalf of the Federal Government of Nigeria in its own name. As a result, Ministry of Finance Incorporated was used as a special purpose vehicle across different sectors to invest in commercial entities over the last 64 years. To put this in context, Ministry of Finance Incorporated was created even before Nigeria's independence. However, Ministry of Finance Incorporated was not structured to be governed or resourced to deliver on the mandate that was expected of it. Ministry of Finance Incorporated, yes, on the other hand, that were deliberately set up with a constitutional framework, governance structure, and execution capacity, have gone on to make major social and economic impacts in their respective nations, many of which have become global brands for investing domestically and internationally. The British also enacted the establishment law for Singapore's Ministry of Finance Incorporated in 1959. But in 1974, after Singapore's independence from the British, the Singapore government decided to create Temasek as a world-class commercial firm solely focused on managing all government investments, while the government focused on putting in place policies, regulations, and the enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Since then, Temasek has grown to become an asset management company of global repute with assets under management of over $300 billion and investments in over 11 countries such as China, Beijing, India, Mumbai, the United Kingdom, London, and the United States of America, New York. As part of our broader reform of the economy, we launched the reform of Ministry of Finance Incorporated to transform it from a registry of investment records to becoming a world-class asset and investments management company specifically charged with the following responsibilities. A, optimize the return on federal government of Nigeria investments by ensuring that they provide risk-adjusted returns in a consistent and sustainable manner. B, provide visibility over what the federal government of Nigeria owns by creating and managing a national asset register. C, take steps to unlock liquidity from federal government of Nigeria's idle assets. D, mobilize in capital and invest in the capital in opportunities that are strategic to the nation's social and economic development plan. And E, partner with the federal government to leverage the nation's investments and assets to support the federal government in delivering on its social and economic mandate. Under the leadership of the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Dr. Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, I approve that the Ministry of Finance Incorporated be restructured and repositioned to become a trusted custodian and manager of federal government investments and assets. As part of the governance structure, there will be a governing council headed by me, a board of directors under the leadership of a former Minister of Finance, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, and an executive management team headed by Dr. Armstrong Takang. We have carefully selected individuals of repute and experience for the respective positions, and I have no doubt they will live up to our expectation to the highest standard. They are to ensure that rules and procedures are respected, high judiciary standards are maintained, and that the Ministry of Finance Incorporated delivers on its mandate. To the honorable ministers who are members of the Governing Council, you are major stakeholders. I am counting on your support for the new Ministry of Finance Incorporated. I expect you to create an enabling environment that will facilitate the creation of a national asset register that will harness to strengthen our fiscal and economic realities, and the optimization of our investments and assets that will be under the purview of Ministry of Finance Incorporated. The Board of Directors will provide strategic direction to guide the management of the new Ministry of Finance Incorporated. I am charging the management team with the responsibility to exercise utmost professionalism in managing the day-to-day operations of the new Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Today, I am tasking the new Ministry of Finance Incorporated to A, grow its assets under management from the current value of 18 trillion naira to at least 100 trillion naira in the next 10 years. B, be the clearinghouse for the management of federal government investments and assets in line with global best practices, with a view to ensuring that these investments are delivering superior risk-adjusted returns to the government. C, work with other MDAs, that's ministries, departments, and agencies, to create a consolidated national asset register with a view to converting these assets into cash flow generating entities to support the government's revenue drive. And D, partner with government with a view to using government-owned investments and assets to support the government in delivering on its social and economic obligations to the citizenry. I now formally launch the new Ministry of Finance Incorporated as I also inaugurate the Governing Council and Board of Directors as presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. I hereby direct the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning to commence the process of amending the MOFI Act and other relevant legislation to further institutionalize this reform. Let me commend the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning and her team for working tirelessly to make this day a reality. I thank you all, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Before we bring this event to an end, there will be a group photograph. That brings us to the end of our guests. Please take them to settle down. Thank you very much.
You're not doing it. Yeah, 5 seconds. Huh? Thank you, I'm back.
From here, we are going to to hold our inaugural board meeting. Luckily, a lot of work has been done. Consultants have been appointed, and there is a 10-year strategic plan that has actually identified most of the key things that need to be done. So I think even though our task is mighty and difficult, I am reliant on a number of things to know that. One is that the quality of the people that have been elected or appointed to the board and to the governing council. Second is the amount of work, initial work that has been done already. And third, the experience of other countries. The president mentioned experience of Temasek in Singapore. There's many other examples of countries that have turned their national investments into assets that are generating income. Unfortunately for us, MOFI has been a very silent and more or less lazy owner of some of the biggest assets that we have in this country. Estimated value currently of about 18-19 trillion. And clearly these assets can be turned around with good corporate governance, with corporate restructuring, to produce, first of all, to enhance their value, as well as to unlock other opportunities for cooperating with the private sector. So I think the nuance is slightly different. You remember the earlier privatization, commercialization, which I participated. I was the first Director General of TCPC. We started the first privatization. Then the point was there were two elements: selling some of the assets, but restructuring companies like NEPA, NITEL at the time to turn them around. Unfortunately, along the line, we lost direction. So now we are actually, the focus is not so much on the selling of these assets, but on turning them around for the benefit of Nigerians.
And what are some of these assets, if you can tell us, that you will be looking at to carry out this humongous task of 19 trillion to 100 trillion in 10 years?
Well, I think that is, in fact, an excellent question. The first of all is that we will do a detailed inventory of these assets to produce a credible national register of these assets. I can tell you some of them for now. But I think really the more important point is there is nobody in government today that can tell you this is 100% with certainty the assets owned by the government. Unfortunately, we are in that situation. Some work has started. That's why we arrived at this estimated 18, 19 trillion. But there are some that are even not known. There's a lot of uncertainty. You know, where are they? Where are they all over the country? What's the value? And how can we turn them around? I've seen the list. For example, you will see for some of the quoted companies in which the government owns shares, some of those companies are dead already, dead and gone. But it is in the register that government is still owning some of those shares. But the companies are no more. You know, so there's, of course, I think in terms of the major assets today, I mean, the petroleum assets, for example, huge. NNPC itself is partly owned by MOFI. The Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, you know, Nexim, our shareholding in the Islamic Bank, you know, African Development Bank. These are all assets owned. And then, of course, there are some that, you know, they are more or less, these assets are either dead or not yielding anything. Some of them, we took loans to set them up. It's supposed to be commercial ventures that are supposed to actually generate the repayment of those loans. Now, in some cases, the government has paid the loans, and those institutions are still being baby nursed by the government. I don't want to give any specific example because I don't want to embarrass some of the MDs of those. So we have to work on those to say, look, you have to now begin to, how do we restructure you in such a way that you begin to yield revenue to the government? And where some of the loans are outstanding, we have to, can we generate some of the repayment of the loans from the activities of those corporations? But certainly, you know, as a former minister, I know that there are those potential conflicts. I think what we'll do is we will try and work together with all those agencies. Luckily, in the background work that was done, as you heard in the minister's speech and in the president, those agencies were actually involved as part of the committee that did the initial work. So we will continue the consultation, and I'm sure at the end of the day, we will do what is in the best interest of Nigeria. Good are generally things that clearly from the intention of setting up this institution, you know that it is going to fill a major gap in terms of managing the investments of this country. I would say that, well, obviously it's up to the new government when they come in, but my hope is that they would actually see the benefit of this exercise and ask us to carry on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.